Alright, neutrals. As the title probably says, I'm just going to do commons and rares here and then do the rest of another video. Try to keep these videos short, to the point. I hope I'm doing a better job of that. I do talk a fuck ton. Alright. Faithful Lumi, people are kind of shitting on this. I think it's okay. It's like the Raven. 1 mana 2/2. Half of the stats of charge. It's a mech itself. It has to hit a mech. It's not great, but in a mech zoo style deck, I think that's pretty reasonable. Like, you don't want to play it on 1, but Abusive Sergeant and Asterisk Veteran also don't want to play it on 1, and those see a lot of play. And buffing health can be very relevant sometimes. So I think this card is probably better than people are giving it credit for, just as like a mech zoo style card. Now, is mech zoo going to be a deck? Probably not. It doesn't look like it. So, I mean, there is that aspect to it. That doesn't mean the card's bad. It just means the archetype as a whole doesn't have enough support. In Wild, Mech Warper, this costs 0. You can buff your Mech Warper up to a 3/4. You also have Clockwork Gnome as a good mech on turn 1 that you could buff. That's one of the things hurting it in Standard is there's no other great 1-drop mechs. There's the Dire Moles. Actually, making 2/4s is pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think in Wild, Mech Mage, this probably has a home. But other than that, I don't know. Goblin Bomb, complete trash. Do not play this card. Most of the cards that make Goblin Bombs are bad, and the card itself is just the worst of all. This is worse than Leper Gnome after the nerf. That's how bad this is, and nobody plays Leper Gnome anymore. The idea is you play it, and they don't want to hit it, so you have something to magnetic onto. But it's not even good for that, and also they just hit it because you're going to do it anyways, and there's no cost. Like, if this were an actual egg, this would be a lot better. If it summoned like a 2/1 or even just a 1/1 or something, it would be substantially better. As it is, complete trash. Mekaru, this is Possessed Villager, but it's neutral and both halves are mechs. So mechs are a more relevant tribe than demons, and it's neutral. So this card's great. Possessed Villager was just an awesome 1-drop, and now we have a neutral Possessed Villager. There's no reason this shouldn't see a lot of play. So I think this is probably one of the better 1-drops in the set. Yeah, Skaterbot, this seems really bad. 1 mana 1/1 rush is really not good. You could just have like Elven Archer. Elven Archer's way better than a 1/1 rush. Just way better. Like, not even close, right? Yeah, this is a mech. Yeah, it's a magnetic. So there's something there. You can give a guy +1/+1 and rush, I guess. I don't know. Like you play this on a War Gear on turn 6. You have like a 6/6 rush, and that sounds really good, but you invested 2 cards into it. I don't know. This might be better than it looks, but I don't know. Cloakscale Chemist. This card's actually pretty intriguing. It's a cheap stealth, and it's really sticky. So for like buff decks, this is pretty cool. For like fill the board, kind of like Bloodlust style Shaman decks, honestly, or with like Flame Tongue and stuff. It's gonna actually be pretty good. Back in the day, I played Goblin Stalker with 2 mana 2/3 stealth in that style of deck, which was really good. This is stickier. Obviously, it's weaker on its own, but it is stickier. I don't know. It's a very interesting card. It's not like amazing, but this is one of those pack fillers that's just like bad stats and a combination of keywords, and you're like, meh, and you want to just move on. But like looking at it, it's really like this could actually find a home. This is actually not terrible. Toxicologist, 2 mana 2/2, give your weapon +1 attack. I mean, this might as well be a rogue card. This seems better than the Combo Pirate, the 2/4. I don't even know its name. This seems better than that, so maybe if Kingsbane in Standard is still a thing, play this instead of that. But other than that, it doesn't seem to be doing too much. It's not a bad card, it's just underwhelming. Upgradable Framebot, 2 mana 1/5 is super sick. Yeah, for magnetic, but just buffs in general. And just having things on the board in general. If you have a deck that wants you to have stuff on the board as you're leaving turn 2, upgradable Framebot's your guy. Like, it's hard to deal 5 damage in the first 2 turns of the game. It just is. Yeah, and it's a mech. It synergizes with stuff. I mean, this card's just good. This card's just good. It's not like the greatest thing ever. Some people are going a little too far with it, but yeah, it's just obviously a good card, I think. Whirly Glider, probably bad. It's intriguing. It's so we've had these 2-mana 2/1s summon a thing, see play before, but the thing that they summon is usually good. Goblin Bombs are not good. That being said, it's kind of enough stats. It just puts 2 bodies on the board. It's fair stats. It pushes 2 extra face. Of all the Goblin Bomb cards, I think this is probably the most likely to be good, other than like the Hunter Legendary, which is either amazing or terrible. Just because it's cheap, it's a cheap way to just put things on the board and it can push damage face. So like in an even shaman or something, if you just don't know what else to cram into the deck, you would at least look at this and be like, maybe. I don't know if it's gonna be good. It's probably bad. But of all of these, which they printed way too many, I don't know why there's so many Goblin Bomb cards. My personal theory is that there's some sort of like office bet with the design team. They're like, all right, how many of these can we jam in there before they cry foul on us? Like, it makes no sense that there's so many of these. There's not even like synergy with them. There's no like Goblin Bomb specific center. It's just like they're just there everywhere. What the fuck is going on at Boom Labs? But yeah, this card probably not good, but the best of the bad cards. Brainstormer, really interesting. I don't know what you would do with this. So, like, if we look at, you're going second. All right, you have 4 cards in your hand. You get to turn 3, so you've drawn 3 more, 7. So you have 8 cards. If you include the coin, which is guaranteed to be a spell, in a spell-heavy deck, let's say like half your hand is spells. So it's like 3 or 4. So it's like 4 or 5. So this is a 3-mana, 3/5, 3/6. In the absolute best case, realistic scenario. Is that good enough? I don't think that's good enough anymore. Maybe back in the day. That would have been something back when like Blackwing Technician was hot shit, but this is, yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I think it has potential. I don't know where the home is. These like scale up Twilight Drake style cards always have potential, but this seems like one of the weaker ones they've printed. That doesn't mean it's definitely going to be bad. It just means it's hard to use it. Bronze Gatekeeper seems pretty bad. Awesome art. Some of the best art in the set. They always seem to put the best art on the worst cards. This card's not that great. It's just 3-mana 1/5 taunt is terrible. Yeah, you can magnetic it onto like the Framebot. So you make a 2/10 taunt, and then if they don't have silence and you're against aggro, you just win the game instantly. So that's cool. But it's like, how often does that really happen? And like, the silence issue is like you're gonna get silence. You can't be too worried about silence. Silence doesn't mean magnetic is bad. Silence does not mean that magnetic is bad. That being said, the existence of silence and it being so prevalent does mean that you probably want your magnetic cards to be independently useful. You want magnetic to be an upside and not the only reason you play the card. And I would never want to play this as just a minion. 3-mana 1/5 taunt is just garbage. It's just garbage. You would only really want to play this as a buff. As far as buffs go, it's pretty good. Maybe I'm being too hard on it. But like it's competing with Stonehill, it's competing with Tar Creeper. I would feel much better if I randomly got this card than if I put it in my deck. Electrorite, very similar to Tinkertown Technician, something like that. Back in the day. So that was 3-mana 4/4, and it also made a spare part. So this doesn't give you the spare part, but the conditional is much easier to trigger. You have to hold a spell that costs 5 or more instead of having a mech on the board. Just holding a card is much easier than having stuff on the board. So this should be easier to trigger. I don't really know if that makes it good. You can look at like Druid. Druids run lots of big spells. You have like Nourishes, Spreading Plague, Ultimate Infestation, that kind of stuff. But it's like you have 0 mana 4/4s in that kind of thing. If you want minions at all, you don't even need minions in those. You don't need cheap early game minions in those decks. And this doesn't play well with Oaken Summons. In Mage, big spell Mage is a thing, but again, you don't really have a use for 3 mana 4/4s there. So I think this card's pretty okay. I think it's homeless. Like it shouldn't be that hard to make it a 3 mana 4/4, and 3 mana 4/4s are really good. Anytime you have an easy to trigger 3 mana 4/4, you should look into it. So you should look into this, but it just seems hard. Kaboom Bot, it's like Voltaic Elemental. Is that the guy? That doesn't sound like the guy. Volatile Elemental. I think it's Volatile Elemental. Yeah, it scales up the damage. It's a mech. It's a 2/2. Dealing 4 rather than 3 is a big difference in Hearthstone. Like, it's a huge difference. This kills a lot of stuff that 3 doesn't kill. Plus it's 2 attack, which also more threatening, and it's a mech, which is a more relevant tribe at the moment, it seems. That being said, I don't see this being that powerful, and it having 2 health is actually a downside, because you could, like, play the elemental and then ping it if you're a mage to instantly trigger the effect. You don't really have any good way to activate this one. Yeah, probably not great. Microtech controller, though. This, I feel like it's sliding under the radar. I haven't heard anyone say anything about this. This is basically muster for battle. This is neutral muster for battle. Instead of getting a Light's Justice, you get +1 attack on one of the guys. So I think muster for battle is better. I think muster for battle is a better card, but there's a lot of room to be worse than muster for battle and still be really good as a 3-drop, right? Like, that's one of the best ones they printed. And this is neutral. This isn't even a paladin card. It's just neutral muster for battle. You get a 2/1. You get 2 mechs. Yeah. Any deck that wants to just throw shit on the board, just put 2 of these in, and you're going to be great. This card's crazy good. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know that style of deck is as powerful now as it was back in the day, because we have Defile, we have Spreading Plague, we have all these really powerful, like Spirit Lash, Psychic Scream, tons of powerful removal, tons of powerful stalling tools to just completely shut down decks that just want to go wide with lots of little dinky garbage. So I think this is, like, if this were printed a couple years ago, it would have been fucking insane. Like meta warping power level. Now it's much more tame, and might not even make much of a splash. I think it will find use in decks that do that, but the decks that do that aren't as common. So, you know, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, probably like going in all the Baku decks, all all the aggressive Shaman and Druid decks. Yeah, this will see play. Spring Rocket. It's like a Disciple of Cthulhu, I believe the name of the card was. Obviously no Cthulhu buff, and it's a mech instead. That card was like reasonable-ish to play in very friend situations without Cthulhu. I'm not even joking. Yeah, like just 3 mana, develop something, and deal 2 damage. In specific instances, can be good enough. So it's a reasonable card. Reasonable cards usually don't see play anymore. So, probably a good mech to discover, though. Very flexible in terms of like your options. And this with Rush is actually pretty good. You deal 2 to 2 things or 4 to 1 thing. Coppertail Imposter. This is great. So what is the best stealth minion in the game? Finja, yeah, but the second best is Stranglethorn Tiger, because it actually has stats, right? Most stealth minions are just like, they either have no attack or they have no health, so they just die instantly when they do anything, or they can't do anything in the first place because they don't have any teeth. So Stranglethorn Tiger works. It doesn't see a lot of play now, but it works because it's a stealth minion that can actually do something, and it's big enough to keep doing things after that. This seems to be in that same thing. A 4/4 is big enough to do a thing and not just instantly be gone. Only stealth for 1 turn, but that's really all you need normally. And it's a mech, so you have your stealth mech leading into your war gears and Ziliaxes, which is just amazing, right? It's really hard to deal with a 4 health stealth guy right now, especially on turn 4. And then you're going to make a 9/9 or a 7/6 Divine Shield Lifesteal Taunt guy, and just start. So yeah. This card's great. If you put those in the deck, you put these in the deck as well. This is the guy. And honestly, if you're just looking for a stealth guy for whatever reason, this is probably the new second best stealth guy. Generally, you don't need stealth guys, but if you do, that's your guy, probably. Explodinator, this is probably the second best Goblin Bomb card. It's probably bad, but it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's bad stats. It's good stats, but distributed poorly across 3 bodies, so that functionally it's really bad stats. But it also pushes 4 damage, and it is 3 bodies, so it's like, if you just want to flood the board, and you want to push face, and you can weaponize the stuff, maybe. I think bad card, but like, this and Whirly Glider, or whatever it's called, are like they're on the fringe of being things you'd consider for an aggro deck, I think. Piloted Reaper is a really interesting one. So obviously a callback to Piloted Shredder. I think this card it's worse and better in different ways. So it's better in that you control the pool of what gets pulled from it, right? You're never going to get like a Doomsayer or something unless you want that. You always get the quality of 2-drop that you would put in your deck because you put it into your deck specifically for this, right? So that's very powerful in that way. That being said, sometimes you're not going to have a 2-drop in your hand, and if they kill this and nothing comes out, holy fuck, that is bad. Like, that is so bad. That is like, oh my god. Yeah, you don't ever want to be in that spot. So that's a huge strike against it, because sometimes your cards just aren't going to line up right. And also, like, this is kind of a subtler point, but it's not generating value. It's not, which the Shredder was. Like, this is a tempo tool purely. Shredder was tempo and value. It's like garbage value, but it is value, which matters in these faster decks where you're just kind of dumping your hand. And trying to make the best of everything while you can before your opponent stabilizes, so you can kill them. You know, that extra just 2/1 or whatever trash it was that fell out. Like, it seems insignificant, but that matters. This is depleting your hand faster and is less consistent. So I think in a very specific deck built properly, this is better than Piloted Shredder. But I think in general, it's going to be more difficult to build that deck than it is to just play a Piloted Shredder. So I think Piloted Shredder is still better. In general. Outside of this, like, Unicorn Reaver deck. Reaper. It's a Reaper, not a Reaver. Steel Rager. 4 mana, Lava Burst a dude. And it's a mech, and it can sit on the board if it wants. It's a pretty fair removal spell, and it's neutral. It looks like a minion, but it's a spell. Swift Messenger, I've been playing with a bit since that came out, and has been pretty reasonable. This is more consistent in that you always know what it's going to do, but it's also less flexible as a minion. I think most classes, what it comes down to, most classes have access to better single target removal than this. So it's unlikely that you would ever actually use that. Yeah, Rusty Recycler. This card seems like it could have cost 4 or been a 3/6, and either of those would have been adequate to make it okay-ish. But just at this, 5 mana 2/6, like, nah, I ain't doing that. It doesn't look anywhere near good enough. They're very hesitant to give us good lifesteal taunt minions. We had the demon. There's like a 1/5 or a 1/6 lifesteal taunt for 4. I've literally never seen that on ladder. I've never seen anyone play that card. It's so bad. So they're like, oh, we'll give it one more attack and make it a mech and bump up the cost. That'll be great. No, not. It's not good. Also, like, the mech tag isn't even worth anything. If you care about the mech tag, you're playing Wargear and Ziliax. Do you really need 5-drop mechs in that deck? Probably not. Right? All your weight is going to be coming from magnetic and stacking that. You don't need... Plus, this isn't weighty anyway, so it's just like, I don't know. This just seems like a bad card. Yeah. Maybe if you're desperate, like a one-of in an Ashmore deck that also has mech synergies or something. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's an obscure home for this, but it does not seem good. Wargear, you've heard plenty about it. This card's great. It's Blessing of Kings, but you can play it as a 5/5 instead. That's insane. That's legitimately insane. Neutral Blessing of Kings, but you could also just play it as a 5/5 instead of a buff. That is actually insane. Damage Stegatron. So this is pretty interesting. 5/6 taunt is just reasonable. It's not like amazing, but it's reasonable. Like, that's just a reasonable card. If they printed it, sure, fine. But this also has the upside of damaging itself, so that you can floop the blue blue. You can heal it up. You can heal it up in like priest and stuff. So if you're playing like a mid-rangey priest and you just want a big taunt, you play this guy. You put him down, and he's reasonable as is out of the gate, and then you can gradually build him up with your hero power and restore him to his full glory, and that's pretty cool. I mean, priest right now is much more combo-oriented than that, so I don't think anyone's going to do that, but that's where you would use this. Bulldozer, cool card, just as a reference to, I think it's Force Tank Max or whatever. 8 mana, 7/7 Divine Shield, 9 mana, 9/7 Divine Shield. This is bad. That was bad. Alright. Galvanizer. This card's really good. Like, not amazing good, but, like, people aren't really buzzing about this. But, like, discounts are really powerful. In particular, discounts with Mechathune, which we'll get to later. It's main synergy. Also in Wild, like, you can play this and Mech Warper. So you can just, like, completely dump your entire hand. Like, turn 2, turn 1, if you have the coin. So that's neat. Yeah, it's just solid. Just solid. These like, discount a tribe cards are pretty good. The elemental one didn't really go too far. It's mostly seen play in like Shutterwalk. And I think that's fallen way out of favor. But yeah. That was a shaman card, and it was like a worse tribe. Mech seemed like a better tribe, and this is neutral, so, and it's better statted. Spark Engine. 2 mana, 2/1, ping a guy later, basically. It's an interesting card. Compared to like Blowgill Sniper. Blowgill Sniper was pretty reasonable. I think, I haven't seen a Spark token anywhere. I think they're elementals. I might be wrong about that, but I think they're elementals. If so, this triggers both tribes, like what they want. They want a mech on the board, and they want to be able to play an elemental before something that cares about having done that. This does both of those the way you want it to work, which is interesting. That matters more than the Murloc tag on the Blowgill Sniper. Less efficient, though, in that you don't get the ping instantly. You have to pay an extra mana for that, but you get to save the ping for later, and your ping can sit on the board. It's an interesting card. I don't think it's good, but it's interesting. Unpowered Mauler. We had a card like this in TGT that had an Inspire that allowed it to attack. And that card was not good. That card was not good. I think it had very fringe use in like casual Silence Priest stuff. But yeah. Not good. This is that, but worse. Yes, it's a mech. But upgradable framebot's better if you're just looking for a high health 2-drop mech. And the condition is much more difficult to achieve than the other one. So the other one, you always have your hero power, and it always costs 2. Right? And that was bad. This one, you don't always have spells, and they often cost more than 2. So this is significantly more difficult than, like, to utilize than a card that was bad years ago. And the power level of the game has increased since then. So I can't imagine a world in which this is good. Replicating Menace. I don't know how I feel about this card, honestly. I keep going back and forth on it. It's like, yeah, the magnetic aspect. Like, let's just look at it as a minion. It's a 3/1, dies, summons 3/1/1s, costs 4. They're all mechs. Just as, ignoring the mech part, just as the bodies, it seems way worse than a 3/1 that just gives you 2/1/1s for 3. Like, you're paying 1 mana for 1 extra token. Doesn't seem worth it at all in something that clearly goes in an aggressive deck. So, if they're mechs, you can magnetic stuff onto them, right? But everything involved has 1 health. So, they're like the worst possible targets to magnetic things onto. Because they're not going to get as much long-term value out of that buff, like over turns and repeated combats. Like, it's not going to last as long. So this is the worst kind of stuff you can put excuse me, your magnetic stuff on. And then you can magnetic it itself, but it's like a 4-mana Blessing of Might, because the health buff is so small. You do get the 1/1 still. Like, there's flexibility to this card, and there's stickiness to it, and it's all mechs. So there might be something there, but it just looks really bad to me. It just looks really bad to me. I might be surprised, but I won't be surprised if it doesn't go anywhere. Giggling Inventor. Super cool card. It probably looks like trash, just like the Replicating Menace, but, so Annoyatron, anyone who's played back in the heyday of Annoyatron will know that they're really fucking annoying. They're really, really hard to get through. This gives you 2 of them. So this is 5 mana that gives you 3 bodies, which is relevant. Gives you 2 mechs, which is relevant. But most importantly, it soaks up 4 attacks worth of taunt. Soaks up 4 attacks. That's huge. That's like more than Sludge Belch on average. Sludge Belcher you can normally expect to get through like 3. And that's pretty widely considered one of the like stickiest, most obnoxious taunts. Outside of Void Lord, obviously. But that's a 9-drop. Yeah, so this is just super annoying, super sticky. And then even after getting through all that, you still just have this 2/1 there giggling away for good measure. Yeah, this card's crazy good. Just crazy good just for board presence. Like, it doesn't look special, but I'd be really surprised if this didn't show up in, like, Baku decks and maybe just decks in general. For, like, grindy Shutterwalk decks, like non-OTK Shutterwalk decks, like, this is just a great battle cry. You just play it on its own. It extends the game. When you Shutterwalk, you get more annoying shit. So it makes your first one, you can safely just play 1 Shutterwalk, and you probably won't die before you can go all in with a bajillion of them the next turn. Yeah. It's a really cool card. Arcane Dynamo is pretty interesting. The stats are really bad. I think people are saying this is really bad, and it does look really bad, because 6 mana for a 3/4 is trash. But this Discover effect is really powerful. There aren't a lot of spells that cost 5 or more. And what that means is that you can pretty consistently pick out specific things that you're looking for. So, like Mage, for example, right? You're always going to get an AoE, pretty much. You're always going to get offered Flame Strike, Meteor, Blizzard, that kind of stuff. So you can put this in as an extra copy of those, but also, I need water. But also, it can be a Pyroblast, which is not a card, like, if you look at, like, a controlling mage deck, that's not a card you'd put in, but if you just happen to have one, it makes it much easier to just close out the game in a surprising fashion. Nobody's going to play around it or anything. In Druid, there's a lot of powerful cards. There's Spreading Plague, Ultimate Infestation, Nourish. In Priest, Priest is a good one. You have Mind Control, Psychic Scream, Free from Amber. Like these really powerful tools that do very different things, and they just straight up win specific matchups, right? Like against aggressive decks, if you Psychic Scream, you just fucking win usually. But you don't really want to Psychic Scream most control opponents. So the ability to have that like optional scream when you want it, and in case where you don't, it's a Mind Control or a Free from Amber kind of effect. Like that's powerful. I don't think you'd ever put this as a 2 of in anything. Yeah, as a 1 of in decks that can go long enough and grindy enough to support. The flexibility of this card is crazy. The cost is also huge. 6 mana for a 3/4 is insanely bad. I'm not saying this card is great. I'm just saying that if you can shoulder that cost, like maybe like Quest Priest is getting support. If you can put one of this in Quest Priest, where you can count on healing to 40, at least once per game, then suddenly it doesn't seem so bad to like have one off turn. And then you have that powerful flexibility. Yeah. Plus in like Reno decks in general in Wild. In Book of Specters Mage, where you just want a lot of minions and you can't really run spells. This gives you access to some very, very powerful spells. I don't know. I think the card is a lot better than people... I understand it's a huge cost, but I think it's a lot better than people are giving it credit for. Just because of how powerful this effect is. Because it's so specific. There's so few expensive spells. This is like the most targeted Discover effect we've ever seen since Shadow Visions, where you literally build the pool yourself. Like, this is the next most consistent Discover. Consistency is really, really, really powerful, especially when it comes with this kind of versatility. So, yeah, definitely give this card a chance. I'm gonna be jamming it into the classes I named, maybe a few more on release day, just to see where it works. I hope it works, because it's really cool. Mechanical, well, this card's pretty cool. I talked about it before a little bit. I think this works in Hunter style of things, where you want mechs and you want play dead stuff, and like replace it with high names. I would much rather have a 7/7 than two 2/2s. I say replace this with high mains. Replace high mains with this. Replace high mains with this. Yeah, card seems super cool. It's like a Skelemancer, but it can die on, it can die on your turn, and you get a smaller thing, and everything's mechs. So, yeah. And then it's just a cool card, and it'll probably see something. Missile Launcher is like cheapo Baron-Geddon. Looks pretty bad to me. There's between 1 and 2 is really big. Magnetic doesn't seem relevant. Mech doesn't seem relevant. It being a 4/4 doesn't seem relevant. It's about as expensive as Baron-Geddon. Yeah. Just play Baron-Geddon. Maybe there's value in... If you specifically want the Whirlwind effect, or if you specifically want consistency of being able to have 2 to 3 Geddons in your deck, maybe that's a thing. But just play Geddon, probably. Spark Drill. This card's super fair. 6 mana, 5/1. So 6 mana, just kill a guy, and then you get 2 pings that you can play out on the board, or throw them at a guy, or split them across. Just super, super fair, kind of efficient-ish, neutral removal. Probably not good. It's just too expensive. Cards that are this fair, even if you want them, they're just too expensive. 6 is a lot. Even if you want this effect. Like, you have to want it, and then, like, who's going to pay that much for it? This card's super... It's too fair. It's really just too fair. No. That's it. So we're going to do the epics and legendaries in the last part, because this is a long video, and I need water.